Hello, and welcome back to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are at it again with tricks for lyrics. We are going to look specifically at the verse, chorus, and section functionality in lyrics for Finale. Now, the verse, section, and chorus can be found in the lyrics window here. You'll see in the top left, you see this pull-down menu that you can choose verse, chorus, and section. And right next to that, there is a number. Currently, it says 1, but you can use these arrows to move up and down. There's 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, etc. And you notice that when I change to verse 2, the lyrics window is empty, which means that there's no lyrics in verse 2. You can change the chorus. Again, there's no lyrics anywhere else in this file except in verse 1. And you'll see the lyrics there. Now, the verse, chorus, and section will allow us to enter lyrics on a second line below the current lyrics that we have. So the verse 1 lyrics will have this specific bass line going across the file, but if we go to verse 2, you'll see that the bass line is actually a little bit lower, and if I click in the score, you'll see that there's a cursor below the verse 1 lyrics. So that's really what these verse, chorus, and section things are set up to do. Now, with the chorus and section, the bass lines for these, which I will talk about in the next video extensively, so look out for that. The bass lines for the chorus and the sections will match the bass lines for the verses, essentially. So the bass line for the chorus 1 is the same as verse 1, same thing with section 1. And of course, as you go up in the verses, the bass lines go down lower below. So that's just how that works. Now, there is, I believe, an infinite amount of verses, choruses, or sections that you can have. In fact, you could probably type in like 145, and now you're in verse 145. I don't believe that there's a limit, or maybe there is, or I'm not sure of it, but it seems limitless. And you may ask then, why is there a chorus and a section here? There's a little bit of extra functionality from the document options in this regard in terms of fonts. In the top section here, you have lyrics set for verse, chorus, or section. So you can actually set the lyrics or set the font for the lyrics separately for each set of verse, chorus, or section. Now it will apply to all the verses, it will apply to all the choruses and all the sections, of course, but at least you can have 3 different default fonts set for those verse, chorus, or section. All right, so that's the purpose of this, and as you can see, you can navigate them between with these little arrows here in the lyrics window, or just type in the lyrics number. There's a couple other ways to navigate between lyrics, and we can choose the lyrics menu and specify current lyric. Will bring up this little window, and you can just choose verse, chorus, or section, and then the number. So if we wanted to go to verse 2, just type 2 in there, click OK, and now we're in verse 2. Go back to verse 1 here. And the other way to do this, which I think is the most useful way, is if you're in the Type in Score tool and you click on a note, of course you'll highlight that lyric that's underneath that note. Just using the down arrow key on your keyboard will move you to the next verse. In this case, if I was in a chorus, it would move me to the next chorus, the next section, etc. And you can keep pressing down to get to verse 3, verse 4, verse 5, etc. And then up arrows will take you the other way, 3, 2, 1, until you're back to verse 1 there. So that's really, I think my preferred way of doing that is just, use the down arrow and you're in verse 2. Although it is odd to me that down will send you up in verse numbers, but over here the up arrow will also send you up in verse numbers. It's just sort of how it deals with it. So anyway, we're going to go to verse 2, and I'm going to type in the verse 2 lyrics. So bear with me, although I think I can probably fast forward this in the video editor, so you don't have to watch me do all of this. So all right, and so now I've just typed the second verse of lyrics into this file. Now, there's a couple things that we can do that I think is worth mentioning here. The first is in the lyrics menu, we have these auto number options here towards the bottom, and what these will do is when you check one of them, you'll see the verse number appear at the beginning of the verse. And we can do that with verses, choruses, or sections, although I don't have any choruses or sections typed in this file, so nothing's going to happen. If you uncheck that, it will go away. Interestingly, if you use the Adjust Syllables tool here, which is the 4th mini tool in the lyrics window, you will get individual handles, which I'm going to talk about these a little bit more in depth later. But one thing that you can do with these related to this is that you can right-click one of those handles and choose the include lyric number, and it will appear individually, which is an interesting way to do that. And actually, you can do that on any lyric that you want. So if I could just put it on this word here. All right. So this is sometimes, oops, I have them both selected there. That's why that happened. But just on that one. There you go. So this could be useful at times if you just wanted to start the numbering at a later position. You know, the auto lyric number will definitely put it at the beginning of the lyric, which sometimes is useful, sometimes is not. In this case, it is useful because I want the numbers to appear at the very beginning, so that's totally fine to do the auto number. And what it will do is as many verses as I put in, it will just keep putting the numbers there as well. So it's a little bit more automated like that, as you can see. There's a couple other things to know about using multiple verses, choruses, or sections related to copying and cloning lyrics. So let's just start with cloning for a minute, and we know that that's the last tool here. Now, with the cloning tool, when you clone lyrics, it will only clone the lyrics for the active verse, section, or chorus that you're using. So in this case, I've got verse 1 active. I'm using the clone lyrics tool. And you'll see that when I clone the lyrics into the alto part, it will only clone the first verse lyrics. It will not clone both lyrics at once. But of course, you can just choose the second verse here and do the same thing, clone, and now you get the second verse here, right? Copying and pasting with the filter looks different. So if I use the selection tool and I choose my filter, and I've got the lyrics set up already, copying and pasting in this manner will copy and paste both verses at once. Now, there's a little bit of now obviously you know the disadvantages and advantages of copying versus cloning, so you may have to, depending on which one you want to do, you'll have to live with those limitations. The one limitation about copying and pasting is that you can only copy and paste all of the lyrics. You can't filter out the verse 1 or verse 2 lyrics in this case when you copy and paste. It has to be all or none. In this case, let's say I think cloning is better in this case. So I'll clone the verse 1 lyrics first in the other parts, and then we'll move over to verse 2 and clone verse 2 in the alto, tenor, and bass parts. All right. And finally, one more thing I want to mention about the verse, chorus, and sections is that there really is no way natively in Finale to move lyrics from one verse or one chorus to another. In fact, there's literally no way to do that. I mean, you can copy and paste verse 2 into verse 3, but then you have to reassign the lyrics to the score. It's sort of a pain in the neck. Except there is a great plugin from Patterson Plugins, which I recommend just for this alone. The Change Lyric Numbers plugin will do exactly that. And it will give you a little utility here that's really simple. All you have to do is type in from verse 2 to verse 3, for example, and you can choose chorus or section here, whatever you need to do, and click go. I don't know why it says there's lyrics exist for number 3, but we can go anyway. And I see that there's a little error there. Occasionally you end up with little artifacts in your lyric window, so this is handy to know about. You saw that it didn't copy those exactly right or change those over exactly right, and you can see that I just highlighted a rogue space in verse 3, which is probably why that happened. Go back here, let's try that again. That looks better. So you can see that I've just moved the verse 2 lyrics to verse 3, which is a handy little thing to do. We can undo that. Now that's the Patterson plugins. If you can find the link to the Patterson plugins at the bottom of my website in the footer, you'll see a link for the Patterson plugins. So that's a great one to have just for that functionality alone, because that's literally the only way to copy and paste lyrics from one verse, chorus, or section to another. So, all right. So that's it. In the next video, I'm going to start talking about bass lines, which are incredibly important as they relate to verses, choruses, and sections, because as I mentioned, every verse, chorus, or section has its own independent bass line. So it's really important to know how all that works, particularly when you're dealing with multiple verses, choruses, or sections. So come back for that, and we'll have some fun with bass lines. All right, so thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you on the next video.